Welcome back to JOJ. It's March 27th, you all right?
Yeah,
okay. And we are going to wrap up our Word of the Month example. And so we thought to end it, we would talk about two people that have been great examples in our lives. So we've had many great examples. Unfortunately for us, they are no longer with us. We know that they are both in heaven. But, you know, it's just two people that we have lost that have been awesome examples. Just kind of, I mean, one for me my whole life, you know, and is my Peepaw, which you've heard us talk about in other episodes of my grandparents who I would come and vacation with, and they're the ones I went to church with in church camp where I was saved. So, you know, my Nana had passed away a couple years ago in 2019 on Halloween, because we joke about her hating Halloween. So, but he passed away unexpectedly in January. I guess it'd be January. No, February.
End of January, early February, right in there.
Yeah. At the time we're filming this, it's been about a month. Yeah. Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
It was actually Ott's first tournament of the year. And so we, you know, it was just very unexpected. You know, and so we have dealt with that in the last month. And then, of course, while Ott was at his third event is when they had the celebration of life for Aaron Martens. And so in 1 week, he was there for Aaron's thing, and I was here for my Peepal's funeral. And so, you know, we're just going to talk about them a little bit and kind of the examples that they've been to us.
Yeah.
Do you want to say the Bible verse?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I think this verse is very fitting for both of these men and the example that they, you know, that they were in our lives and in everyone's life who knew both of them. First Corinthians, verse 13, 4 through 7. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. And I know that's one of Jennie's favorite verses.
Well, I mean, I think, and Jake can attest to this, it's usually the verse that you have at your wedding.
Yeah.
Like that's usually
it is.
Somebody reads it, or it's just, you know, it's in your little program.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, both of those men love a lot of people. You know, that's what I think of when I think of both those guys. That's what I think of, is just how much they loved those around them.
Yeah,
and that's why I think it's such a fitting verse to talk about the example. You know, that both these men were for us.
Yeah, so you want to do Aaron?
Yeah. I guess we'll start with Aaron some, and Aaron. You know, I look at him, and you know, the first time I had ever met him or ever even been in a tournament that he was fishing in, actually was on Smith Lake in like 2006. Was the first time I ever remember fishing against him, and I didn't really know him at all. Didn't meet him, but my first year on the Elite Series at the All-Star Championship deal down in Montgomery was the first time that I ever spent much time around him, and I mean, he was just extremely welcoming. I was a rookie.
We were the new kid on the block.
Yeah, I was the new kid on the block, and he was very welcoming. I mean, at that tournament, like, taught me how to tie a uni knot. Bro, this is the best knot you'll ever tie. It's the strongest. It's what you got to tie with fluorocarbon. It's, you know, the best knot to tie. And a couple of the things that I wrote down about him, one of them was teaching. I'm his competitor. I'm competing against him in this tournament as well as all the tournaments I'm going to fish in the future. He wanted to teach me. Yeah. He wanted to show me, you know. Not only did he want to teach me, he wanted to teach everybody. I mean, that was a great thing about Aaron. And Aaron, way more so than myself and almost anybody that I fish against. If you walked up to him at a boat ramp at the end of the day and he was trying to go home, he was going to stay and talk to you until you were done. I mean, not until he was like, okay, I'm done. He was going to stay and talk to you until you were done asking questions and until you had learned everything you wanted to learn. He was a unbelievable teacher. That was what he wanted to do. When he was on the water, on camera, he was always teaching. Yep. Sometimes you didn't know he was teaching. You just knew he was talking.
Talked a lot, yes.
But he was teaching is what he was trying to do. So I think his example in that, his example, and and he would laugh if he were here, for me to talk about it. But he finished second a lot. In a lot of really big events. I think he had like 3 or 4 seconds in the Classic.
Kind of came his thing.
It did. It absolutely did. Regular tournaments, he had a lot of seconds. He won. He won a fair amount. But he did. He had a lot of second places, and he handled those second places better than anybody else, in my opinion. You never saw him.
He was never ugly about it.
Never ugly about it. Never really seemingly that dejected about it. I'm sure, personally he may have took them hard. I think we all would, especially as they added up over time. But he never let anybody, you never knew that. You never saw that. Where other people, other competitors that I know,
you would have seen it.
They didn't handle the seconds so well. They didn't handle them so gracefully. So his example in that, he was a very humble champion and a very gracious second place finisher. So much, any time that happened. But then the last and truly the most important thing, and why I thought this verse was so fitting, was the way he loved people. There wasn't a time from after that first time that I met him, and spent any time with him whatsoever, that he didn't tell you he loved you.
Oh yeah, I mean, and fortunately for us, when our kids were younger, we got to experience much more because we camped together. So we traveled all over, and in the summers, I mean, that's who we were in our family, and the kids, and
their kids,
they're it was just our road family, and so. I mean, there's never a time that you didn't see Aaron and he didn't hug you, tell you he loved you. Same with leaving, just always. And
he might be sweaty from running.
Oh yes,
but
he was always encouraging you. He always wanted somebody to come run with him.
Yeah.
He would. I'm sure y'all have heard stories that he would sit in his boat for hours working on tackle. Well, it'd be 10 o'clock at night, and he's going to go for a run because he didn't do his run yet for the day. So he'd go run 3 miles around the campground.
Yeah.
And so, and that's an example in its own of just,
his dedication.
Health and fitness were very important to him. And so, if he was going to make sure he got it done, and he was always going to invite you. I don't know how many times he'd see Odd out there. He'd be like, come on, dude, get your shoes, bro, come get your shoes on. Like, let's go for a run. And no.
Yeah. I wish I would have took him up on something. I could have never kept up. But
that would have been pretty entertaining in itself.
Yeah. But he did. He loved people. He loved life, and most of all, he loved God.
There's no question.
Yeah.
And that's, I think we're fortunate. I mean, that we got to have those memories and experience Aaron at his finest. Just because, I mean, even the kids, they'll talk about, when Leslie and the kids weren't traveling with him, he kind of camper hopped on food and dinner. I mean, literally would walk in and be like, oh, you got leftovers?
Yeah.
I don't want any. It's not good for me.
Yeah.
And then he'd clear the entire tray every single time. Yeah. I always joke. I'm like, other than Ott, there's not another angler I have shared my meals with more than Aaron. Yeah. We could be at a restaurant, at a Classic, anywhere. And he'd come in and he'd come sit down with us. And he would eat my food. Yeah. I'd say, I'm good. He's like, oh, were you going to say? No, it's yours. I mean, so just a genuinely good guy and just an awesome example.
Yeah, definitely was. So,
Yep. And then my Peepal, which he had turned 85 in January. So he was with us for 85 years. And, I've talked about before, only, he was just grandpa to me, and then our kids renamed him Peepaw. I'm not really sure why and how that happened, but at some point he got renamed to Peepaw.
Yeah.
But
I think it might have been Allie, and she couldn't say grandpa when she was little, and so it just became Peepaw.
Yeah, our niece.
Yeah.
And so, for me, I experienced him my entire life, and and I can honestly say that I can remember him maybe getting like flustered a time or two, but like I don't ever remember him just being
grumpy
mad or angry, or I mean, now that I really think about it,
yeah,
I've seen my Nana mad.
oh well, yeah.
She was a little fiery.
Yeah. Peepaw was definitely the even.
Yeah, he was definitely the calm and cool.
Kind of like our relationship.
Yeah, a little bit. Not as crazy as my Nana.
You got a long way to go, honey. You didn't know your Nana when she was 36.
This is true.
She may have been a little less fiery at that point in time.
You'll have to think about that one.
Let's move along.
Yep, moving along. But and my Peepaw was kind of the same way when you talk about loving people, but also on like teaching. Like I don't know that there's been a time that, especially like Parker, because he takes in everything, knowledge. I mean, that's just, he wants to hear about history. He wanted to hear about what it was like when he was growing up, when he was in the war, just, everything. And so he would sit down and, and tell him all the, show him pictures. And, but I think his greatest example is he would always, especially with Ott and I, he would talk about what he'd read in his Bible that day, because he always did his daily devotionals every day. He'd sit down. And I wish my Aunt Brenda has got his Bible, but just like the notes and everything that he would take from there. And I don't know, I just I guess growing up with it, I just never questioned his faith or his intentions or anything. And that's, I think says a lot.
It absolutely does. Yeah, I mean, his faithfulness to God was easy to see. Any conversation you'd ever have with him, pretty much, you could tell that's where he was rooted. There's no question about it. His faithfulness and to God. And then I also looked to Nana B. I mean, his marriage and the way he cared for her. The way he loved her. That's to me very admirable for a lot of ways. But I look at him. I mean, if I could be that man in our marriage, I'll consider myself successful. Because he, good as gold to her.
And we laugh when we say she's crazy, but she was.
Oh, she was. No, there's no doubting that. Yeah, she earned every bit of that. And she'd tell you that,
Yeah, and not in a bad way.
Oh, no.
I'll preface that, but she loved to decorate, loved to move.
Yeah.
And any time they moved, everything was redecorated, and so. And I think even after she had passed, he was just she loved to do it, so it's what we did.
Yeah.
Never a.
No.
It made her happy, so
that's what
we did.
That's what made her happy, and so that's what he would do. Did it drive him nuts on the inside? I don't know how it could have.
To. I would
but he knew that was what she loved to do. So that was what that's what they did.
His love and love for her was just always just so evident, and even after she passed, after he had passed, I had several people, just making sure that I was okay, and because of course I'm dealing with the kids here, which they all didn't. My brother and I, my mom and my Aunt Brenda, we were able to go to the hospital and stuff and see him, so we kind of had our closure in that moment. But the kids didn't want to go to the hospital. I gave them the option. And he wanted to be cremated. So we had, my Nana is buried over at the Veterans Cemetery here. And so he wanted to be cremated, and then obviously he was buried with her. So we had that service, and of course, and that was the first time Parker could really process it. And a funny little note is, at the time of filming this last night, we have been to the house because my mom's going to sell it, and so cleaning out, and Parker took a blanket we had made for him, and it says Peepaw on it, but he apparently also came home with some of Peepaw's cologne. So I go to tuck him in last night, and he's laying there, and he has that blanket wrapped around him, and he's like, "Mom, do I smell like Peepaw?" And I'm thinking maybe the blanket from the house, and he gets close to me, and I'm like, Yeah. He's like, I put his cologne on tonight. So I told Otto, I was like, well, our 10-year-old smells like an 85-year-old man. So there's like, that.
I've been successful.
It's greatest achievement.
Yeah.
But so, we've just all kind of processed it. And I don't know that obviously, like, I was really sad. I mean, he was my last living grandparent. But, like, a part of me was, like, rejoiced for him because, I mean, there was no other place he wanted to be than to be in heaven and, to be with my Nana B. I mean, from the time she passed away till his time, that was like his goal. Yeah. And, and I've said my last conversation I had with him, he's just like, I just don't know how many days I have left here, and I'm Peepaw. And he's like, well, just wake up and just wait. Like he was excited to get there and which is super sad for us, but
and that's as sudden as it was for us. Mm-hmm. I mean, I look at it and I'm thankful. I'm thankful for him. I mean, he was there and he cared for Nana B and her declining health and was there every step of the way for her. And would have wanted no different. I mean, for not for her to have suffered that way, but he would have wanted no different than to be by her side the whole way. But doing that, he didn't want anybody to go through that with him.
No,
not whatsoever. No. And I'm thankful that he was independent,
very independent. Still drove,
doing everything he wanted to do.
He drove blind until he had his cataract surgery. Actually, he actually drove with one hand over his eye, is what he confessed to us. Yeah,
he could see good out of his right eye, just not his left. So he didn't
drive far, but
it wasn't a car wreck or anything. So it was natural causes, but still, but he was independent and he lived his life fully. He did everything he wanted to do.
Yeah.
Until his time came. So I am sad that he's gone, but I'm so very thankful that he has received his crown. He has, as in our verse before, he ran his race.
Yep, sure did. All right.
Well, I think we will wrap up with that. But again, we'll share that verse again. 1 Corinthians 13, verses 4 through 7. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres.
Yep. All right. We'll see you next week. We'll be live and draw a new word.
Yep. See you then.